Raising capital. So that was the question we were addressing yesterday in our group discussion. And I had to step in, shut down the gentleman from taking that matter any further. And I thought it would be a good idea to explain a little bit more details as to why those kind of moves are really, really tricky and requires legal counsel's opinion before anybody chooses to do something like that. So before I get into this, number one, I'm not a legal counsel, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just sharing my opinion the way I have understand the regulations. And my suggestion to anyone watching this would be is to connect with an attorney and discuss your individual situation. If you need a referral, absolutely, I can definitely connect you with people I work with, and they'll be happy to explain this matter in details. So, having that said, the general rule is that you're not supposed to go and advertise that hey, you're raising capital or you're looking for investors or this is such a lucrative investment opportunity in your companies. And the reason behind that is because SEC doesn't want you to tell people about the opportunity without disclosing all the risk that comes along with it. And when it's our business, when it's our company, it is very natural for us to be passionate and easily cross over the line between what's the reality versus what is not a reality. So that's why SEC have put some regulations in place to avoid that. So we're going to talk about some of those regulations and how they work. Having that said, let's start with basic. So basic is I want to start a new business. Maybe I form an LLC or an S corp, and I put some money in it. That's my money. I'm taking the risk. I'm not telling anyone anything about that investment. That's all my risk. That means, as CC says, that's cool. No problem there. Maybe my father says, Deepak, I'll give you $50,000 for your business. And I might possibly even give him equity in the company. So this one kind of gets a little bit shaky because if my father has no intention of getting that money back, that means it's a gift. Now, I'm not talking from tax perspective, so leave that alone for a second. But that's a gift. And because it's a gift, once again, he has no expectation of getting that money back. So as CC says, that's cool as well. We're not going to bother with that. Next option could be is maybe you go to your neighbor or a coworker and you say, hey, you know what? Let's do a business together. Let's start a restaurant or some other business together. And we will run it. I will run marketing. You run the operations. We'll make tons of money. Now the SEC said, well, since both of you guys are taking risk and both of you guys are actively involved in the business, then we're still okay because I don't think you can really mislead each other. Although there are disputes along with that, but that's a different story. That's why I would recommend have a proper operating agreement whenever you're doing business together with, especially if it's not a family member or your spouse. Even with family members, I still recommend the operating agreement because that's one document can resolve a lot of problems. So now you're doing business with this partner, and now SEC says, okay, as long as you're both are involved together, you're doing things together, you're actively involved in the business, we're still good. So far, we don't. I think risk of you misleading each other is still minimum, so you can get away with that. Then you perhaps say that I want to ask somebody else to give me some money and act as a passive partner in the business. Now, I'm carefully using the word partner, not an investor. And I think that is also kind of like borderline because technically speaking, that person is a partner because he's not, not a partner, an investor because he's not really operating day-to-day business. He doesn't have any rights. He doesn't have any decision-making authority. Um, he doesn't know what's going on in the business. So some of you guys probably might have some people like that. And if you're not following the regulations, that can bring you a lot of trouble. This person can actually file a lawsuit in some situations where he feels that he was misled by the active people running the business. That's why it's very careful whenever you're raising funds. I want to come back to it just in a second. Let's dig a little bit deeper and let's address somebody who has a startup or maybe other business and they're trying to raise a capital. Okay. We'll talk about that. And then another one we want to discuss also is what about franchises? A lot of people buy franchise. So let's talk about franchise first, and then we'll get to startup for a second, because I think there's more, our audience, more people will probably buy franchise than actually buying up another startup or anything like that. So in franchise, in the United States, franchisors are supposed to get audited financial statements, and those audited financial statements are included in their disclosures. And franchises have to register with each state they offer franchise in. So let's say if they offer franchise in 50 states, they need to register that franchise in 50 states. When you buy a franchise, you have a clear agreement with the franchisor. And that clear agreement states what are your rights and responsibilities and what are franchisors' rights and responsibilities. And both of you operate that business together on the basis of that contract. So you see, even in the case of franchise, the government is still trying to protect the franchisee. They're not saying, hey, look, anybody can just open up a franchise and start collecting franchise fees and start building franchises. So look, just hold on for a second. We are going to regulate it. We're going to put some speed breakers in between to make sure that people just don't get run over by your offerings. And like I said, the reason behind that is because it's natural for anyone, doesn't matter whether they're a small company or big company, to be really passionate about their business. I mean, we recently saw the news for Nikola, right? Remember that whole truck driving down and it was pretending like, they had actually built a technology where the truck can like self-drive, but in reality, it was just rolling down the hill. So great example. I mean, how much money you have, how big company you are, or how small. I guess it doesn't matter. Humans are humans. We are either driven by greed or fear, and we can do all kind of things. So whenever you're buying a franchise, once again, SEC doesn't step in because of those reasons. Now, if you're buying a franchise in a different country, then obviously, I don't know, each country have their own state-specific laws, but almost every country, I think, has a franchise-related laws. So you might want to seek a legal counsel in that country to find out what your rights and responsibilities are. Now, what if you start a business and you give that business to someone else to operate? Or maybe you're the person operating somebody else's business. That can happen, right? You and me can start a business together and we say, look, we started the business, but we don't want to work in it anymore. We're going to go ahead and pass this business over to our friend who is going to run this business for us now. And maybe we give him profit share or maybe give him some salaries, something like that. What happens then? Well, it's still our business. We started it. We are operating it. All we have done is transferred our operational liability to this another company now. That means, if something goes wrong in our operations, his insurance kicks in, his liability kicks in. And in the other way to look at it is we have kind of added a layer between him and us. We ultimately, you as the business owner is still responsible, but you have a layer in between. I mean, they have to go through him first before they can come after you because you're not running the business. This company, whether it's like another example could be is maybe you're renting a property and you hired a property management company to run that for you. So you added a middleman there. So just because you added a middleman, that the SEC regulations kick in now? Not really. I think that's okay. We're all right with that because ultimately you are still responsible. The chances of you running any kind of fraud is slim. Remember, their job is to protect an investor. That's what they're looking at. So that kind of gives you an overview, I think, of if you're a small business, if you're partnering up, friends, family members, right? Now, this whole mess where people try to make pitches to regular people or they go post messages on social media or other places, where is that coming from? Why do we see that somebody thinks, oh, other people do it, so I can do it too? Where is this confusion? Because who wants to break the law? I don't think majority of the people don't want to break the law. But unfortunately, the problem is, I guess, when you try to stop them or when you try to say, look, just hold on for a second, I guess somehow you hit their ego and they just don't want to take that as an answer and they want to debate that out. Unfortunately, you can debate it whole day long, but in the meanwhile, you're still advertising a security, you're still advertising somebody to raise capital, and we're still breaking the law if we try to do that. So in the meanwhile, that can be a big problem for anyone. So I don't really know how we can get this message out to people, because I guess people just learn from making mistakes, and that's when this thing comes to the mind. But let me tell you where the core of this coming from. Why do people think like that in the first place? It's coming from crowdsourcing phenomena that we have seen in last few years. Now, personally speaking, I'm not a big favor of crowdsourcing. It's good for some people. There's a place for it. I think if you have a good product and you have a good system, there's a place for it. But for majority of the people, it's not good. Not for investors, because I mean, how many crowdsourcing products actually really work out? Majority of them fail. So what happens is people like you and me, we see some crowdsourcing websites, maybe online, and we see a particular opportunity, maybe that we like, or we think they have a good potential. And now that we have interacted with that potential, we go on social media, and next thing we know is we are being bombarded with ads for many, many months. You saw one pitch. That's it. That was it. But they're going to follow you for next 6 months, a year, and just keep showing you different pitches. What we are thinking is there are a lot of other people pitching their products to us, but that's actually not true. Who is pitching up these products is the same company that we were looking at earlier. And how did we get in their system? We got into their system by registering with them. And by registering with them, we have fulfilled the requirement of crowdfunding intermediary that was required. And now this intermediate company can go ahead and continue to advertise other securities to you. Or for that matter, now that we are in their system, even that company that we interacted with originally, they can also market their security back to us. So from our mind, we're thinking a lot of people are crowdsourcing, a lot of people are crowdsourcing, but that's actually not really true. It's not all those companies. Not every company is trying to market their products to you. It's that one middle company that is trying to market services to you. Are they allowed to do it? Yes, they are. So there is specific laws for crowdfunding, and not everybody can crowdfund. You have to go through a crowdfunding intermediary who is registered with the SEC, and who is responsible for managing the entire structure of crowdfunding. That includes providing you with all the disclosures before they actually make a pitch to you. So if you go onto any crowdfunding website, first thing you will see is before you can even get in, there will be a disclaimer, number one. Once you get into it, look at the company, then there will be a disclosure from that company. There will be financials from that company. There will be all bunch of little things that are there to help you evaluate. Now, the bad thing is the regulation doesn't say that those documents has to be as pretty as their pitch. So oftentimes the pitch is pretty, documents are not. So and they're boring, they're designed that way. And that's why people don't look at that boring stuff. They ignore it and they only look at all the pretty part and end up either investing in that company or moving on. So that's what's happening with crowdfunding. But the simple answer is no, not every joke. And like if I wanted to start a company and go to like 50 people in my city and say, okay, crowdfund into my company, I can't do that. That's not how that works. If you're concerned or confused about that, then talk to a local attorney in your state who can clarify that for you. So I think that's where a lot of this junk is coming from. If you take a loan, you go to a bank or or somebody else, like maybe family members or friends, that is also not in the purview of SEC. That okay, look, there's a loan, there's a guaranteed interest you're paying out. We'll leave that alone. So that's okay. So now let's talk about what about outside of that. We're not going to count. So I want to go raise funds from a group on Facebook or anywhere else. I want to go advertise it. I want to say there that, hey, I have this great investment opportunity into this great sector, maybe in a great country or a great city as well. I want to make it look pretty, right? Can I do that? No, you can't do that. That can get us in trouble if we try to do that. Remember, you cannot go advertise the securities without following the proper procedure. Okay, the proper procedure is you need to register with SEC. That process is time consuming and expensive. So SEC says, okay, we're going to make it a little bit easy for you. What we are going to do is we're going to set some parameters. We're going to give you some exceptions. And if you stay within those exceptions, then we will leave you alone. Okay, what are some of those exceptions? Exception number one is you file a disclosure document with the SEC, I think commonly known as the Reg D. And then you can go out there and try to have meetings with accredited investors and share your pitch deck, your pitch, your sales presentation, your company presentation, whatever you want to call it. You can do that. Now, why is that? So the regulation says, like, if somebody is an accredited investor, and I don't want to spend another 30 minutes talking about who that is, but you can just probably find tons of video online or just Google it. What they're saying is, look, if somebody is an accredited investor, that means they must be, they must understand the process. They must understand the risk associated with this transaction. So we're going to let you pitch this to them with the limited information that you're providing. If that is not an accredited investor, then you probably have to provide them audited financial statements along with it as well, right? And you have to provide the disclosure document. So that's how complicated it gets. And then there's a lot of rules. For example, where is my company registered? And where is the investor located? Are we in the same state? Are there different states? Based on that, the regulation changes a little bit. What is my relationship with that person I'm talking to? Do I personally know them? Did they reach out to me or did I reach out to them? That creates all bunch of scenario changes. So this thing is so complicated, but the basic rule of thumb is don't go advertise. So now you might say, well, wait a minute. How is that true? A lot of people, if I don't advertise, how am I going to go raise funds? Okay, so let's talk about that. So number one is introductions, one-to-one introductions. Let's say you want me to invest in your company. One way is we get to know each other. We become friends. I get to know who you are. I get to know what your company is. It's one-on-one. It's not a public platform. It's one-on-one. I get to know you. And once I get to know you, maybe I can introduce you to someone else. Maybe I can talk about your company. At some point, when I feel like I have enough information about your company, I know enough about you, I approach you and I say, hey, look, can I invest in your company? Okay. Now you're good because I'm the one reaching out to you. I know enough about your company. Now we can have that discussion. So that's one way to do that. Another way to do that is you go to people who are expecting that from you. That means these are the people who are actual investors. For example, they are venture capitalists or some of these other groups where people go raise capital. You can do that there as well. Why? Because once again, those websites, those groups They will probably have a paper for you to sign the moment that you go there, or maybe they will already have, some documentation, whatnot. I mean, these guys do that for a living. They know what they're doing. So because they know what they're doing, that's okay. But if you go to general public who doesn't know anything about you as the owner of the company, or you as a part of that company, or a manager, or even a guy who's trying to raise capital for that company, that creates all kind of issues. So please be careful. I would, like I said, it gets really, really, really tricky. There are a lot of it can go in so many different. In matter of fact, you know what? At the beginning, like if you don't want to spend any money and you want to have a better understanding of these regulations, go on SEC website and say raise capital. They're going to walk you through the steps, and then you will realize what I'm talking about and how serious that is. That's why whenever I do meetings, we do our discussions calls, I always make it very clear about two things. Number one, I'm not an investor advisor. I don't give you investment advice. I don't tell you what to buy, when to sell. That's not purview. I'm a tax guy. I give you tax advice. That's number one. Number two, in situations like these, I always make it very clear that we're not raising capital. I do not endorse any company. I do not recommend any company. I personally do not spend money into those companies just because I want to stay away, because I don't want anybody to get an idea that, hey, I'm going to do this because Deepak did this. So absolutely not. So no matter, my job is to educate, to train, to entertain at the best, nowhere close to giving you an investment advice or telling you what to buy, what to sell, or, invest in a company or not invest in a company, buy this or buy that. No, that's not us. Okay. Another problem happens in this area, which I think is important and people should understand. And this is growing as well, and I see it. There are a lot of innocent people who get taken advantage of in this arena. So this is how that scam works. And I call it scam because 99% of the time when I talk to these intermediaries who are running this, they have no idea they're part of this scam. So how does this work? Works something like this. A company needs investors because they want to do X, Y, Z. This company is very well aware of all these regulations I just discussed. That there are these regulations. This is how you can advertise. This is what you can advertise. This is who you can reach, who you cannot reach. They know it very well, and they understand it's difficult. They go like, look, if we comply with all these laws, how are we going to raise even a single dollar? I mean, how do we stay in business? They'll say, we have an idea. We know the law, but there's somebody else who doesn't know the law. Why don't we pay that person some commission? Okay, so what they will do is they will go and recruit, let's call them sales agents, affiliates, I don't know, contractors, whatever word you want to give them. They will go recruit those people and they'll say, look, anytime you bring us a deal, we're going to pay you 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, whatever their commission rate is of that deal. These people say, wow, that's a very lucrative deal. Sounds very good. Oftentimes these people will first invest their own money in them because they want to test it out. But, still they're putting their own money at risk. And now they think, you know what? I think now I have earned the right to go tell other people. Well, guess what? You haven't earned the right. You're still promoting a security. You're still asking people to buy. You're still in the purview of SEC for raising capital. You still need to follow all those rules. But unfortunately, these people don't know the rules. So what do? They go start marketing it, telling people about it, all that stuff. And do you think they tell all these rules to the people they're selling this stuff to? Absolutely not. They don't do that. They themselves are not aware of the risk. They don't tell their clients about the risk. And next thing we know is now we had the first guy who just did it because of the greed of making some commission. And then he brings in another 10, 15 people because they get greedy because that particular investment is offering them higher ROI. But what they don't realize is that higher ROI is coming with enormous risk, and they're completely unaware of the risk. That's why I always recommend that talk to an attorney, talk to some people who have nothing to do with that transaction and neutral, and try to get their opinion. and then kind of decide what you want to do. Not They cannot make a decision whether you should buy it or not buy it. That decision should always be yours. What you want to do is you want to learn and gather information as much as you can. You know, that's what you want to do. And my job here is to kind of bring some of these important points to your attention and hopefully save you some trouble, save you some mistakes. So some of you guys who might got offended because I stopped you from doing this yesterday, I hope this clarifies, and one day you'll come back and thank me that I potentially could have saved you from a lawsuit. Because if you don't trust me, just go on SEC and learn about this matter yourself, or talk to an attorney. Go like, hey, I'm trying. This is the words I use. This is where I advertise, and this is what happened. Um, am I allowed to do that? And you'll be surprised to hear the answer. It's not as simple. Like I said, whether you're trying to do it as a small business for yourself, maybe you're looking for partners, maybe you're buying a franchise, maybe you're getting an operating partner, versus raising capital. There are like so many different variables in the picture. So there's no easy way to just give like a quick answer. You see, I think this video is closing almost 30 minutes, and I haven't even talked about specifics. Go read the rules. 506A, 506B, 506C. There's how much capital can you raise? Who can you raise it from? Who is an accredited investor? I mean, we can go on, and this video can be like 4 or 5 hour long. I don't have that kind of time. I'm not your legal counsel. I just wanted to point you in the right direction. That's the purpose of my call. I hope you like it, and I hope you find it that I was actually looking out in your best interest and just stopping you from making a big mistake by trying to promote an equity. So please don't do that. Hopefully you will understand where I'm coming from. All right. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you very, very soon.